I'll start. And I'll start by saying welcome to the Core C++ Meetup. This is, in fact, our 35th meetup and our third birthday. So I think that's really, really, really awesome. 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago, I was very, very frustrated that I couldn't find, I didn't know almost any C++ developers in Israel. And most of my C++ news came from either reading stuff on Twitter, or the C++ Slack channel just started back then, and watching videos. But I wanted to see if there is an actual community of people who have the same interests. So I started at the suggestion of John Kalb from CPPCon and Jens Veller from Meeting C++. They said, why don't you just open a meetup group for C++ and see if you get some members, and then you'll be smarter, because there is no real way to gauge interest. So on Thursday evening in late October 2017, I opened this group and I scheduled a meetup for a month and a half later, with everything to be discussed. So there was no location, there was no topic. It was just called the kickoff meeting a month and a half later. And the next morning, I actually had to upgrade my Meetup subscription, because it had a 50 user limit, 50 member limit. So I had to pay for the extra Meetup subscription. And by the beginning of the following week, we had already 200 members, and we've been growing. We've grown over tenfold since then. So I think this is really, really awesome. We hardly missed any meetups. I think we missed one just at the beginning of the Corona, at the beginning of 2020 this year, and we plan to keep on going. So welcome everyone. I know half of you have been here before, but all the new folks, welcome. So as I said, we're 3 years old, and I tried to list, with Michael's help, some of our achievements and what we've had so far. So in the photo, this is a photo I took with my phone 3 years ago at the first meetup. And I can see Shalom Kramer is here, and there's another Shalom Kramer here. And here's Dvir and a few more folks that I see here. And we still see them, regular speakers and regular attendees that attend, that usually come to our meetup. So I think it's really, really awesome. And this is what shows that it's a very lively and a very nice community. So welcome. If this is your first time, you're welcome to join. We try to be very friendly. So we've had, Michael compiled some of the statistics for me for my slides. So we had 95 lectures in the last 3 years. I think this is really amazing. It's over 30 talks. It's almost 30 talks a year, and sorry, yeah, over 30 talks a year. This also includes lightning talks, and we're talking about 51 speakers. And these don't include the speakers from the conferences, I think. We had, as I said, 35 meetings. 54 of the talks are online. You can freely available on YouTube, and you're welcome to go and find them. And of course, we had our meetup group, user group, directly led to the creation of one international C++ conference, which was a huge success. This was in May 2019. And unfortunately, it was supposed to be, I did hope that the number here would be 2, but due to the COVID-19 situation, we actually had to cancel the second Core C++ International Conference, which was supposed to be even bigger than the previous one. You can see some numbers for our social media presence. We've got over 1,400 members on Meetup, over 3,000 followers on Twitter. We have YouTube subscribers, and we even have a Facebook page, which isn't gets post. We post news regularly there, but there's not much activity there. And you can also follow our news on LinkedIn. Now, some of the key achievements that I'm personally very, very proud of is we've had, over the last 2 years, by my rough count, over 12 members of our meetup, of our user group, that began by giving talks at the user group, went on to give lectures and to become accepted speakers at international C++ conferences. This picture here is from CPPCon 2019. And you can see this, all the speakers from our group. So we actually had a very, very large representative group at CPPCon 2019, which was really, really awesome. And we had a photobomb by Bjarne Strastrup, the inventor of C++. I wanted to list, we almost had Strastrup as a keynote speaker at Core C++ 2020, but unfortunately the event was canceled. So I'm keeping my hopes high, and hopefully he'll join us next time. We've had international guest speakers at our meetups, so you don't actually have to wait for the conference. We do get international speakers like Michael Wong and a few others that came to give talks at our meetups. We had international joint meetups with two user groups in Sweden, and we actually have plans to do a few more of these. These are really, really cool joint meetups where members from both or all attending groups are joining the same online session, whether it's live or face-to-face. It's broadcast live and streamed, and we get talks from both sides, from both countries. So with Sweden, we actually had 2 meetups in Sweden, and there was one lightning talk from each site, and then we had one distributed talk between Israel, is like half given in Israel and in Sweden. So that was really cool. And perhaps one of the coolest things that I never imagined we'll ever get to is that members of our group took it upon them, and Inbal is one of the main folks who worked tirelessly on this effort, and that's to establish an official national body for Israel to become a voting member of the C++ International Standard Committee. And in fact, Israel did vote on the C++ 20 standard.
Mm-hmm.
So, Inbal, correctly if I somehow mentioned this, I failed with the terminology, but I think it was almost.
No, it's great.
Right. So I'm really, really proud, and I'm just trying to think what we'll have in the next 3 years or in next year. I can tell you that our youngest speaker was 11 years old, and I know we've had attendees who are over 80 years old. So we do try to cater to a very, very large audience. And essentially, I usually say this in our meetings, you don't really need to be an expert to come and speak here. Our talks have a very broad range of topics. Nobody is an expert on everything that can be done with C++, so we always have stuff to learn. We like tutorials, we like introductions. So talk to us, come and give talks. And I usually start my opening words with a survey to see who's here today, because it's really helpful for us to understand the community. This is like it shouldn't take you more than 30 seconds to fill this out. I think Inbal just posted the link on the chat, in the chat room, or you can use your phone with the QR code here. It should open on your phone. We have 25 participants at the moment, so hopefully I'm serious, it shouldn't take more than a minute, than 60 seconds to fill out. It's not a very comprehensive poll. It's just a quick poll to get a sense of who we have here.
And I'll just mention that on the well-being, 5 is good. 5 is like the best because we had questions. So.
Oh, you're right. I forgot about that. Okay, 19 responses. That's cool. Is this your first Core C++ meetup? Okay, so we have 5% of us who are first timers. That's really amazing. Welcome, everyone. I'm so happy that even after 3 years, we're getting new members. You're welcome to join our meetup group if you haven't, and then you'll get notifications. But we do try to have meetups every month, so you can set it up. You know, it's one thing you can have every month. Everyone, I think most people, of course, are placed in Israel, but we have some folks from, well, 5% is probably just one person. But we have people, folks from Asia, from America. That's really nice. That means early morning there, and some folks from Europe. So welcome everyone. That's what we try. We do try to keep the, especially the online meetups in English, but also the face-to-face meetups. We do have most of the talks in English, precisely because the videos go up on YouTube and you get a broader exposure. So it's actually good for the speakers as well. It's one of the ways that, for example, C++ conferences can evaluate and see, and you can practice giving a talk in English. I see most of us are feeling pretty well, over 4 out of 5, so that's nice. Most of us obviously are working from home, but it's nice that people are actually getting back to work regularly. And this month's languages, so over half are working with Python. Not surprising, but you can see that I would have expected C to be slightly higher, but that's interesting. And we have some Haskell developers, other COBOL. Wow, we have a COBOL developer. Welcome. Maybe we should give a talk. So why don't you ping me on the private chat and we'll see. That should be really awesome. And there's a new question here. How many C++ podcasts do you listen to? In fact, I actually forgot to put 0. So I kind of assumed that everybody knows that there are C++ podcasts. So I see most of you are listening to one of them. Oh yeah, sorry, there are C++ code. Yeah, so over almost a third aren't aware that we have C++ podcasts. So in fact, we do. I'll mention this in a minute. And when did you first attend core C++? So we have a nice graph here. 21% in 2017. Refresh the page. See. Cool. So that's like 2 or 3 people. Actually, I didn't answer the poll myself, so should be around over 20%. Over 20% of us were here from the start. So this is really cool, and you see we have a lot of veterans. So I guess we're doing something right. Right. So a little bit of news. So if you're not aware, there used to be 2 C++ podcasts. There's CPP Cast, which is very, very well known, and they've been running, I think, for almost 5 years, maybe 4 or 5 years. They have over 300 episodes. It's an awesome podcast by Rob Irving and Jason Turner. And there's another podcast called CPP Chat, which is a slightly different format, run by John Kalb and Phil Nash. And just this past week, we got 2 more, not 1, but 2 more podcasts from very, very well-respected and well-known members of the C++ community. The first one is called the ADSP, the podcast is the Algorithms, Data Structures, Programs podcast by Bryce Edelstein-Lobach and Connor Hoekstra. Both of them are well-known, very well-known C++ developers, international speakers. I recommend you go and watch any one of their talks. Bryce was here at the conference a year and a half ago, and I always give him the credit for being the one who urged us to go and create the Israeli national body for the standardization. So Bryce has a very warm place in our hearts, right, Inbal?
Right, very much. I'll just mention that it looked so scary when he talked about it, and I can't believe that actually, we pulled this through.
Totally. And there's another podcast that started recently, just last week. It's called the TLB Hit. It's a podcast about systems and compilers. And again, it's from Chris Leary and Jeff Bastian, also very, very well-known speakers of the C++ community. So I put the URLs here. Maybe you can, yeah. And I think Bal posted the CPP cast URL on the chat room. So I really urge you to go and check these out. I know most of us are not really commuting. In fact, 89% of us are working from home. but maybe you go out jogging and you get a chance to listen to podcasts. Right. So what's on our agenda today? I've already spoken more than I expected. We have a talk from Noam Weiss, who's also a veteran speaker. Noam, how many times have we spoken before? Once or twice? 3 times?
This would be my third time or something like that, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, so Noam will talk about aspect-oriented programming. And then when we have our now traditional show and tell, where people are welcome to come and share a bug they found, a library, a cool feature, something interesting that they had over the that they'd like to share, talk for about 5 minutes. We had some really interesting discussions in this spontaneous show and tell sessions, including things that became viral on Twitter and got like all the practically some very, very important members of the community discussing something that Andre brought up here. So this is a great chance. But again, we try to keep it informal. I will say again, for all of us, all those who joined us just now, we prefer, if you can keep your video on, you can keep your mic muted, but turn on your cameras. It's much nicer to speak to actual faces than just names. And I have one last slide where I just want to thank all of the people who really, really joined me and helped us establish this user group. And of course, the first person is Michael Gopstein. When I just started the meetup, I wrote that I'm looking for some people to give talks because I'm going to give a talk, but I didn't think that it should be the only person giving a talk in my own meetup. And Michael was the first one to step up, and he gave a talk about move semantics in our first meetup, and joined me as co-organizers immediately after. Michael edits. He's usually very quiet. He lets me do all the talking, but he takes care. He edits all of the videos for us, making sure you can see both the speaker and the slides. He helps us with the website and everything else. So Michael, thank you so much for joining me on this amazing adventure. Inbal joined us as the user group organizer a few months, maybe 6 months ago, something like that. Again, Inbal, when we were looking for speakers for the conference, I reached out to several organizations, and Inbal came and she gave a really interesting talk, and she saw it's really cool. So she got involved, and then with Michael Peeri, who's also mentioned here, joined Michael started, I think, the initial initiative for the national body, and then joined by Inbal and a whole bunch of other people, which I'm sorry I couldn't list here. Maybe Inbal will mention them. Amir, who's also here, joined us just recently, right? Like for the organizing committee for the user group as another organizer a month or a couple of months ago. And of course, Eran Gilad, who's the organizer of the Haifa CPP, C++ meetup in Haifa, and together joined us in organizing the conferences. So hopefully we will have a conference. As Amir spilled the beans, I will say we are already actively trying to see if we can get Core C++ 2021 conference for next year. So we're checking that, and we will have more news about that in the coming months. I want to thank all the speakers. Some of them are here, most of them are not at the moment. We had amazing international speakers who joined us both for the conference and for the meetups. We have a lot of dedicated veteran members. Again, I couldn't name them all. So you know who you are, and I really appreciate your friendship. And it's amazing to know such awesome developers. And of course, the sponsors who made it all possible. When we do face-to-face meetings, sometimes we need to rent the offices or the rooms where we're having the meetups. Our sponsors usually pay for the pizzas and drinks. So this really couldn't happen without our sponsors, and we're extremely grateful for that. So I think I've already spoken way too long. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I'm giving the screen to Noam to tell us about aspect-oriented programming. Thank you everyone.